We're now talking about people, that are absurd in nature, not qualified, more than just outsiders. We're talking about provocateurs, which would potentially, not just be confirmed, but be more than disruptive, be destructive to some of these institutions.
Now let's talk about what is going on in America. President-elect Trump continuing to build his top team. Interesting material he's putting together to get that team into shape. One name in the headlines, big headlines, Matt Gaetz. Donald Trump has nominated him to be the next Attorney General. The former congressman from Florida has been, as you might expect, a strong defender of Donald Trump during his numerous court cases.
The lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service.
We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them, if they do not come to heel.
Maybe I should serve as Attorney General of the United States. If necessary, I'd fire every little kicker at the J. Edgar Hoover building.
Well, whether you think he should be the Attorney General or not, he's going to be the Attorney General if the United States Senate agrees to that. Here's the view of one Republican senator, Markwayne Mullin, who told CNN Matt Gaetz was maybe not one of the good guys.
This is a guy that the media didn't give a time of day to after he was accused of sleeping with an underage girl. And there's a reason why no one in the conference came and defended him, because we had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with. He'd brag about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night. All of a sudden he found fame because he opposed the Speaker of the House back in November. And he's always stayed there. And he was never going to leave until he got this last moment of fame by going after a motion to vacate.
He will be an Attorney General with an interesting background. Let us now welcome then Molly Ball, Senior Political Correspondent at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome back to the show, Molly.
Hey, John, great to be here with you again.
Molly, I just keep on seeing these stories of shock in Washington at the naming of Matt Gaetz to be the Attorney General. Were you shocked, Molly?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, in part because in our reporting on who was under consideration for this post, his was not a name that came up. And we are now learning, in fact, that he wasn't really on the lists that were being assembled by the advisors around Trump, but this was rather a sort of spur of the moment decision that came out of left field, even within Trump world. So it is hard to overstate how shocked Washington is by this selection. And there's a lot of questions about whether and how he will actually make it into the Attorney General post, as you said.
Right. I mean, you think Washington would be getting used to being shocked. And this his name came out just days, didn't it, before the publication of an inquiry report, which would have been, well, clearly pretty embarrassing to him.
That's right. It was actually after we learned that he was being nominated to this position that he suddenly resigned his seat in Congress. And we learned that that was ahead of this potential report by the House Ethics Committee, which had been investigating him over these sex trafficking allegations, charges. He was investigated by federal law enforcement, in fact, by the same department that he would oversee as Attorney General. And those charges were dropped. That investigation was not pursued, but the House Ethics Committee continued to investigate. From what we have heard, these reports are confidential, but from what we've heard, there is quite a bit of damaging information in this report, if it ever comes to light, which it may or may not.
All right. Now, Molly, tell us a bit about Tulsi Gabbard, if you would. And when that name came out, there were more jaws hitting more floors.
That's right. Tulsi Gabbard is another very interesting figure, a former Democrat. But she was always a sort of unconventional Democrat. I actually saw her speak about a month ago at a rally in Washington, D.C. with RFK Jr. So she's really aligned herself with this sort of interesting cast of sort of third-party characters. She was formerly a supporter of Bernie Sanders, and she considers herself a voice for sort of the anti-war left. She has said that her departure from the Democratic Party was primarily over foreign foreign policy issues. When she served several terms as a Democrat in Congress, and in that capacity, she came under a lot of fire for meeting with Assad in Syria. So there was a feeling that she was a little bit too interested in hearing from some of America's enemies abroad, and that is where some of these allegations come from, that she would be sort of a stooge for Putin in this position. So there's a lot of, I think, people in the national security community who have a lot of qualms about her nomination as well.
Right. And Molly, let's talk about the Senate's role in this, because it's the Senate's job to approve top appointments. But Donald Trump wants to shortcut that process, isn't that right?
Possibly. I mean, we assume that he'll go in through the front door and only look for alternatives if that doesn't work out. I mean, the interesting thing is that these appointments were issued yesterday at a time when we were otherwise seeing a sort of joyful scene on Capitol Hill where, you know, the newly minted Senate Majority Leader was being elected. The House Speaker was being confirmed in the majority and also elected to a new term as well. So Republicans were in this sort of happy, celebrating mood. They were feeling all this unity. Trump, you know, came to Washington both to meet with Biden and to meet with the Republicans in the House and Senate, and everyone was feeling excited about the things they were going to be able to accomplish. And then when these appointments came down, it sort of killed that mood. And now there's a lot of disarray and contention on Capitol Hill as the Republicans try to figure out how they are going to deal with all this, whether the Senate will, in fact, confirm these nominees. And if not, as you say, there's potential, the people around Trump have been studying the process under the Constitution and the relevant legal precedents for whether they can do what are called recess appointments when the Senate is not in session.
All right, who on earth knows what tomorrow will bring. Always lovely to talk to you, Molly. Thank you. Molly Ball there at the Wall Street Journal. Now, hello and good afternoon, where we are to Matthew Bartlett, who was appointed to the State Department in Washington in 2016 by Donald Trump, but then he resigned that post after the insurrection on January the 6th. Hello to you, Matthew.
Hey, John. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the program. Matthew, what's going through your mind looking at these latest appointments, latest names lined up to be appointed?
Yeah, I think President-elect Trump started off with some very strong picks of former elected leaders, current elected leaders, senators, governors, some that even got bipartisan support or praise. And that has certainly fallen off the cliff in the last 24 hours. We're now talking about people, that are absurd in nature, not qualified, more than just outsiders. We're talking about provocateurs, which would potentially, not just be confirmed, but be more than disruptive, be destructive to some of these institutions.
Yeah, I mean, as we speak, I'm just looking at a report in the American media which quotes an unnamed Trump source suggesting that Matt Gaetz was selected to be the Attorney General for the purpose of, and I'm quoting, to burn down the Department of Justice from the inside. I mean, how does that make you feel?
The American public is frustrated, and let's just be clear. They're very frustrated with the last 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration, of liberal policies across the board, whether it's economics, foreign policy, or just regular law and order in the streets and cities of America. It is absolutely outrageous. Mm-hmm. They clearly, across the board, do not want to stand for that. Yet again, President-elect Trump comes in and I believe has a bit of or has a large misread, and that the Attorney General should once again go back to this conversation of more than an independent agency for the law, but rather being the president's personal attorney, exacting personal revenge, that they feel as if political lawfare may have been committed by Democrats. Maybe that is the case in certain situations. So ergo, they are now going to practice the same policies upon the Dems. This is where Donald Trump tends to lose the American public. This is why he is so polarizing. I do not believe that the United States Senate will certainly confirm him, as Molly alluded to. There may be a notion of daring the U.S. Senate, of usurping the U.S. Senate, having a recess appointment. Ultimately, again, institutions hold no matter what, no matter the personnel. But right now, it is problematic to approach your second term, which could be on very shaky footing from the start.
Although, Matthew, he said over and over again during the campaign that he was going to go after those people that he claimed were going after him. And he won. He won by a reasonable margin.
Yeah, he did. The American public have had it. Again, on so many policies. But again, the personal grievances, I'm not sure that polled high in any exit poll, that they were voting for Trump to exact revenge. This becomes a fictitious narrative, maybe in his head, maybe with some on the right. But in terms of practice, not only is this not good politics, it just won't hold. Institutions here in America, in a bipartisan way, beyond the branches of government, it can be tested, they can bend, but they will not break.
Does that mean, Matthew, does that mean you think the United States Senate will kick out some of these appointments?
I think so. Let me just be very, very clear. Democrats have spoken. You have a 53 senators, Republican senators, who will give deference to the new American president, which all presidents deserve and have earned with their win. Yet some will not be given the benefit of the doubt. They will be given an opportunity to explain, to justify why they are best to lead this role. But ultimately, no senator is going to abdicate their power. They are here to work with the president, not for the president, despite the optics. And at the end of the day, they are beholden to their own constituents. So some of these people, in the case of Matt Gaetz, his familiarity with the Justice Department was that he was being investigated by it for some very serious accusations. As we've said, there are reports coming out, potentially now. So there are questions as to why is this the best person to, outside of a political partisan narrative of retribution and revenge, is this what the American people want, that will make the United States safer? We will see, but I believe his path is so narrow that it is very hard to see.
We will see. We will be watching closely. Matthew Bartlett, formerly of the U.S. State Department, thank you for coming on.